Good evening. Welcome to our August 28th Matthews Board of Commissioners meeting. I'm Mayor Matthews John Higdon. I'd like to start with some introductions. My left and your right is our Assistant Town Manager, Malia Gordon, Commissioner Renee Garner, Commissioner Larry Whitley, our Mayor Pro Tem Ken McCool, our Town Manager Becky Hawk, our Town Attorney Charlie Buckley, Commissioner Mark Tefano, Commissioner Gina Hoover, Commissioner John Urban, our Town Clerk Lori Canapino, and our Communications Coordinator Maureen Fee. I'd like to ask Reverend and Commissioner Whitley to give us the invocation tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Those that would love to join with me, please join me. Our Father, we thank you for yet another day, our very life, our health, and for strength. Lord, we thank you for the beauty of a brand new day. Now, Lord, as we come to do your business, we ask that you would grant us the wisdom and knowledge that we make sound decisions for the town of Matthews. We offer a special prayer for our law enforcement and our first responders, that you would cover them and protect them, Lord. Those things that are pleasing in your sight. We offer this prayer in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now look at agenda item number 4, the adoption of the agenda. I'll ask the town manager if there's any additions, deletions, and amendments to the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, we do have one addition, and Mayor Pro Tem McCool is going to make that motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we add a closed session at the end of the meeting. The board will meet in closed session pursuant to Board of Commissioners to consider personnel and pending litigation matters.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem McCool, second by Commissioner Whitley. All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Now entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McCool, second by Commissioner Urban. All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Move on now to public comment. Agenda item number 5. Anyone who's registered in advance will speak first. And after that, anyone in the audience who wishes to speak may do so. Speakers have up to 5 minutes. Anyone interested in speaking about one of the public hearing items should wait until that item comes up in the agenda. I know we have a lot of our veteran friends here today. You may wish to consolidate your remarks, or if we're not. We'll call you out in the order that you signed up. Jack Santinello.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
No, you have to talk in the microphone.
Okay. They scare me, these things. Well, you all know me. I'm Jack Santinello. I'm the current chairperson of MENVAC, Matthews Veterans Advisory Committee. But you know, a little history. My family moved to Matthews from Louisville in June 1988, 35 years ago, to Brighton, when there were still cows across from us on Pleasant Plains Road. I missed their morning wake-up calls. I've never missed an election in Matthews because I feel it's a privilege and a duty to vote. I don't vote party lines. I vote for who and what I think is right. I am a proud Air Force veteran, and as you may know, the current chairperson of MVAC of this country. I am also a member of the Matthews American Legion, a proud member. I've been there for several years. Isn't it great to see you guys here? All these patriots who serve and help defend our country in time of need. Several years ago, Mark Tefano, one of our commissioners, recognized and saw the need to revitalize the area in Stonetown Park. It was devoted to honoring our veterans, and which had deteriorated to a shameful piece of land. I think you'll all can remember all those reasons. bushes. He called out to veterans. Right there. Rallied them to help in this needed revitalization. Many are in the room today. All these people have put in a lot of hours, including myself, to get that park to where it should be. Not only did they put in hours at a time of physical hard work, they also donated to the cause by purchasing memorial bricks and other donations, honoring family veterans and friends. Mark also got on board many local businesses to donate materials and supplies, among thousands of dollars. No lie, I was in finance back then, and I can tell you, it was thousands of dollars that these local businesses like Lowe's and the brick company donated to this cause. And to his credit, he led the charge to rename that part of Stumptown Park to Matthews Veterans Memorial Park. I don't think anyone in this room can deny any of the above comments. If you can, let me know right now. I don't think so. Since then, the town has taken over the task of funding and completing the park under the leading of Corey over here. So what's going on? Simply put, veterans want to put up an identifying signage at the two exits of that part of the park, of the Veteran Memorial Park. This is in the plans that the town has developed. But as many of us know, there is a possibility of moving the park land to land that may be purchased by the town from CMS. When? Next year? No, ain't gonna happen next year. Of course not. 3 years from now, maybe. Never good possibility. No one knows or not speaking up about that. I have heard that putting in the identifying entrance exit columns that are in the current drawings into the current park has been determined to be cost inefficient because if and when the park moves, you got to move those columns, and the way they're developed right now, it'd be very expensive to take them out of the ground. So that's not going to work. I believe I read somewhere that there's an alternative way to put in these columns with a construction process that would be less costly if in fact they had to be moved and transferred. Great idea. Again, when would that take place? I don't know. 1 year, 3 years? Do you know that over 6% of Matthews residents are veterans? That's in the most recent information I received. Okay? There's hundreds more in outside areas, Indian Trail, and other places, Min Hill, places like that. The town of Matthews has, in the past and now, declared and published, we have publication up front, that Matthews is a veteran-friendly community. Now it's time to show the community and its veterans these aren't just useless words. Remember, there are over 2,000 veterans and their families living in Matthews that may be voting in November. Put up the signs now, not years from now. Make an inexpensive temporary signage and put that up there. That'll please everybody here, I think. Thank you for your time. Do the right thing. Thank you.
We congratulate you on great timing in 2 seconds.
Really? I tried to go home.
Roll call.
Hi, my name is Steve. I don't have any prepared speech, but I'll try and keep it short and brief with deference to your meeting. I'm a 2-time combat veteran from Vietnam, currently the commanding officer of the Post 235 in Matthews, American Legion. The reason we are here tonight is that the 2 columns had been voted on and approved by you all years ago, literally. And we've had meetings after meetings in which it's been kind of pushed back and pushed back. And I've spoken, one of the reasons was it would be very costly to move those if we have to move those. I've spoken to 3 architectural firms in Charlotte who all said that if they're told ahead of time that those columns will be moved, will be very easily done because they will put them on steel rebar on the four corners that would just slide the column over and lift it off when you had to move it. So they're saying there's very minimal cost to having to move those if you need to move them. The Legion paid for every aspect of that park as a contribution to the people of Matthews. We've gotten very positive response all the way around in the media. We were on the cover of the calendar where the mural was picked out of everybody, and that had nothing to do with town of Matthews. That mural was selected as a focal point in the town of Matthews. I kind of find it unconscionable that we would predicate the issue on what ifs. I just don't understand how you operate or manage in a what if environment. What if this happens? What if we can buy property? What if we can move it over? I don't see that that's a fair treatment to the veterans, especially when we're 3 years down the road. We were told twice they would be there for Memorial Day and 2 Veterans Day, and we still don't have them. It's a very simple process. There's nothing really involved. There's no major expense involved. We've already been guaranteed by this town of Matthews and their representatives, if the park does get moved, the Veteran Memorial Park will move with the park and remain in downtown Matthews. So what's the difference if we have to move the whole park to move in 2 columns? I just don't find that to be a valid argument. And I really find it amazing that the Matthews government would function on a what if mentality. They're talking about the hurricane now. It's taking a different track. It's probably going to come inland and hit us. So should we cancel Matthews Alive on the what if the hurricane's going to be here? I find that rather astounding, but that's the reason that we've been given, all of us, that we still don't have a park that can be recognized as an entrance and an exit. So, you know, I'm speaking for all of them in time so that you're not tied up with everybody else coming up here. I will speak for the members of the Post and the veterans in Matthews, that this has really been a heartbreaking issue to us. It seems to us that there's been an absolute lack of respect for what we have tried to do for the town of Matthews. And the only request we've asked is 2 brick columns to delineate the entrances of that park. So I would ask that you consider that it's time to get past the what if. There's a lot of things that we go down the road. That's not the way you function. I don't think you can function properly if you're going to do it in a vacuum of everything that comes to the floor in this meeting. Somebody comes in and says, yeah, but what if? And that's what we're getting as the statement for why it's not being done. I hope that I haven't offended anybody. That was not my intent. We have all these veterans that came tonight because of their concern for the lack of what appears to be the respect the veterans earned in the town of Matthews. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So, I don't know, the rest of you also, I'll call your name if you want to speak. You're so welcome. I have Gary Price. Would you like to speak, sir? Frank Dorsey. Would any of you like to speak? I think all of you signed up. Certainly, I don't want to take away your opportunity to speak. If someone would like to speak, please come up and say your piece.
Good evening. My name is Alfred Rivera, a member of Post 235, Air Force veteran, 1965, 1969. Served a tour in Thailand during Vietnam, and without my knowing it, Jack here was at the same base that I was at, and I never met him, never saw him, never knew him until last year. Imagine that. Anyway, I'm hearing that Matthews is supposed to be a veteran-friendly town. The only thing I have to say is show it. Putting those 2 columns up will be a nice showpiece to identify the Veterans Memorial Park, which right now, I mean, I was driving down through South Trade this afternoon with my wife, and I told her about the park and the memorial, and she said she couldn't see it driving by because the trees cover it. So those 2 columns would not only identify it, this is a Veterans Memorial Park, this is a nice memorial in there, go see it. Veterans who maybe don't even know that's there, as they're driving by, can stop by and take a look. But I think that's the thing to do. So like I say, let's get off the pot and never mind what else goes with it, but that's it.
Thank you, sir. I hope, we look like we're gonna have a relatively short meeting this evening, so I hope you guys and gals can hang around for another few minutes to hear the full discussion on this, but there is a little bit more to the story that we want to share with you, and then we'll get some resolution. So, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on anything that's here tonight during the public comment period? Maureen, do we have anybody online that's indicated they have?
No, we do not.
All right, Jack, you're back up. We'll hear a report from Matthews Veteran Advisory Committee.
And you thought you all got rid of it. All right, so I'm gonna talk about, I have an update from the NVAC. Did this last year, do this again this year, we'll do it again next year. Introductions of our members, a little bit of history and bylaws review, accomplishments since we started back in 2015. Some financial reports, and they're not boring. The Veterans Veteran Discount pamphlet update, which I'm very proud of. Okay, so first, let's talk about introductions. We have Larry Stawicki. There's 13 members, and we have, that's our quota, 13, and they're all full. Larry Stawicki, he's not here, retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel. He's a founding NVAC member, an old regime. My joke was to Larry, you're not old, you're just part of the old regime. And he was prior NVAC vice chairperson and chairperson. Myself, Air Force veteran, also a founding member going back to those years. There's only 2 of us left. Old regime, I'm the current chairperson. Margaret is here, retired Air Force colonel. Currently, she's NVAC vice chairperson. Margaret, please stand up. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Mike Schubert, Army veteran, he's on vacation. He's our current NVAC treasurer. Fred Dorsey, please stand up. He's a naval veteran. He maintains our veteran information racks, of which we have one downstairs, one across the street at the chamber, and other locations. Trelane Thompson is not here. She was our secretary. She's from an Army family. Her son graduated West Point. She's a prior NVAC secretary, and his dad was Veteran of the Year a couple of years ago. Matthews Veteran of the Year. Daniel Burnham and Mike Burnham, both Air Force veterans. Paul Campbell's here, Army veteran. Jim Thurman, who's not here, Army veteran, and Stephen Wolfong, who you heard speak a little while ago. He is a naval veteran, current commander, Matthews Hooks Or American Legion Post 235. And Mike Vento, who's not here, Army veteran, prior treasurer. Also here tonight, okay, part of the group, part of our team, Teresa Falk over here. She's the director of finance for the town, and she helps us stay on track as we go through our meetings to make sure we don't do anything wrong or say anything incorrectly. She does a great job. I thank her. Gina Hubert is here, town appointed commissioner. She helps us a lot. She makes sure that we go stay on track. Maureen here, Maureen Keith, all right, communications. She was very instrumental in the hometown hero banners, which was requested by the mayor when he went through a town a couple of years ago and saw banners up there. So Maureen's been very instrumental in getting that done. And she also was a great a great advisor for the Veterans Pamphlet. I appreciate that. Okay. Then back history. You may remember some of the folks on the commissioners, George Fawcett. He was a town commissioner, retired Army captain. And he formulated, it was his idea, his dream to put an NVAC in place. back in December 2015. Our first official meeting was January 6, 2016, 7 years ago, where 23 people came to the meeting, and all 23 were appointed to the MVAC program. Important bylaws highlights: improved communication. This is MVAC bylaws. Improved communication, collaboration, and cooperation with all town departments, personnel, other town committees, and military organizations such as the Legion you see here and VFW. I think we're doing a good job with that. MVAC role: act in an advisory capacity to the town's board of commissioners and staff on matters of interest and importance to service members, veterans, and the families, which we've all seen tonight, talking about the park. I think we're doing a good job with that. Personal thing. Accomplishments since inception of 2015. We put 2 literature stands, racks, one downstairs, one across the street. And Fred Dorsey helps me maintain those. We solicit publications from various veterans, services and organizations to help our veterans and masters understand what is available to them and how to go about it. We were instrumental in purchasing the Purple Heart signs for the town of Matthews. You see them, one is over by Brewster's. We purchased and placed the military flags you see behind me, okay, for this good meeting room. That was early on. That was at the request and direction of our very first chairperson, General Fisk. Designed the MVAC 10 reasons to hire a veteran. They're in the literature racks. Donations for Queen City Honor Flight, which theoretically happens twice a year for Matthews residents, actually for the whole city. We donated, we purchased it and put up the military flags for the Veterans Memorial Park. They didn't have any prior to that. We purchased the World War II bronze plaque for Matthews Memorial Park. Designed and purchased the Overstreet banners of military service emblems. You'll see that twice a year, the week before Memorial Day and after, and the week before and after Veterans Day. They're in 2 different locations in town. As you come and drive to town, you should see them up across the street. And Maureen helped with that too. We sponsor annual social events like this year, the Army Navy football game will be at Mario's. I'm gonna ask Maureen how they advertise that. We have veterans there. Okay, it's a great event. We had it once before, and it's really a nice social event for veterans and their families. Mario's has a big back room, TVs and stuff that we can use there. And back will purchase the food. And at the request of Mayor Higgins, we mentioned before, we developed the Matthews Military Home Hero Banner Program. And designed, developed a veteran discount publication, information program, which I'll get to at the end of the program. Other initiatives in the works. Would you believe that Matthews Glen has 150 veterans in that place? And I found out a week or 2 ago that Windsor Run has 50 plus veterans in there, 200 plus. There's got to be a way that MVAC and the town can help them, help those residents who are up in their years. We're talking about senior veterans up in their years that need some information and direction on how they can get help. So what we're thinking of is meeting there with some veterans, like with the veteran service officers, where they can explain to them the different, like the new PACT Act that came up that helps veterans who were in Vietnam and in the Philippines, and Thailand, and have Agent Orange problems. Okay, so that's where my thoughts are right now, is trying to get in there and give them these ideas and help them identify where they can get them. Service dogs. Danny Berman had this idea several months ago to see how we could help veterans with service dogs. Found out it's an expensive program. Don't know how we can do this, but we're still looking into that. To see maybe there's some way we can marry the dogs to the veterans, okay? Not necessarily pay for their training, which is thousands of dollars. So we're working on that. Continued import regarding Matthews Veterans Park, we did that a little bit earlier. And collaboration, continued collaboration with the Legion for ideas and projects. Okay, next. I got 4 financial reports to show you. Last year's fund and usage report, a 3-year plan, which we developed last year for the first time. This current year's budget, which comes off the 3-year plan, and funding, how much we spent as of today. Let's go into that. The first one would be the 2022-23 source and use of funds. We had a total available for use of $6,861. That was a combination of carryover from 2022, which was affected, like everyone was affected by COVID, didn't spend too much time. And last year we had an additional $100 for the honor fund. We gave $500 to the senior center for the homeless veterans event, and that was given also by the Legion. So they got $1,000 from the veterans in this town, Veteran of the Year plaque and Veteran of the Year materials. So remaining funds carrying over is $5,969.98. Next page. So this is the 3-year plan. You see the $59,69.98, add to that the $2,500 funding will be received for this year. It looks like a lot, $8,469, but it's like a drop in the water compared to Matthew's budget. All those items marked in red, Veteran Mayor of the Year program, the honor flights, hopefully we'll be funding 2 of those, one in the fall, one in the spring of this fiscal year. Donation to homeless veterans, which we matched by the Legion. So our 500 plus their 500, $1,000. MVAC sponsored Army Navy game, about $500. That's our budget for it. We won't go over that. Okay. And again, we can get advertising. Okay. Veteran Flag Day. So that's a new one. Flag Day social event. We thought we could do this until we found out that food trucks aren't allowed right now. If that comes back, if for some reason that's allowed in the future, then we will do something like this right here in the park, in front of the town hall. So it's not, that's a question right now. Miscellaneous items for Veterans Day event. If we need to purchase some items for Veterans Day, and in conjunction with the Legion, we'll do that. That's a very good event. People have come there in the rain, veterans coming in the rain, and we need to make that more successful. The discount pamphlet cost to print $750. Never mind my volunteer hours over the past 14 months. Maintain a veteran info racks, $100. Well, that's in case we have to pay postage for items we put into information racks. And as I mentioned, the service dog project, we're still researching viability, nothing assigned for that. So definite expenditures for the year we're in right now is $4,855. Carrying over to next year and the following year, $2,800. And you'll see down the bottom there, at the end of 2025, there's a negative balance of $90. And why? Because we hope to fund 2 honor flights that year. In the following year, same thing, we'll have a deficit of $2,995, primarily for the honor flights. But when we get to that, we'll fix it. We'll find a way to do that. So that's a 3-year plan. This current year, 2023-24, well, excuse me, the budget for this year, coming off that 3-year plan, you see the same numbers. We started with 5969, total 8469. We'll wind up with, if we spend all that we say we are, 2,800 that will be carried over next year. We will operate off of that budget. Great new ideas, that's fine. For example, if we get something that we can replace a service dog project with, we'll do that. Okay, lastly, pride and joy. Oh, yeah, okay,
Which,
okay, I'm ahead of myself here.
you're going,
Running hard. Let's do this. Veteran discount program. The idea was formulated several years ago. I know Mark, talked to Mark about this, about having a veterans discount program where we would tell the veterans what's available to them out there. With the guidance of Maureen here, we designed the program. You should have a copy of that, okay? If not, I got 100 more copies here if you need some for veteran friends and families, whatever, okay? And we have some outside the door here, some downstairs, and some across the street. All right, it took 15 months to complete. From the time I started to the time we distributed them just a few weeks ago. The way I did this was I would drive to shopping areas like Windsor Square or whatever, okay? In my car, and I would drive around the whole area, taking photos of the various businesses. Whether I knew they gave a discount or not, I'd go home that afternoon or that next day. I'd go on the internet, get their correct address and their telephone number. The next step was to call them and ask if they had a veterans discount. Yes or no? And yes, they marked yes. I did that for many, many days. We got like 93 businesses in that pamphlet. And guess what? We're going to have more next year. I've already got requests by several businesses, including the Levine Senior Center, to put their name in. Okay. There's a few in town here that when I show them this beautiful pamphlet, maybe they'll be embarrassed to put their name in also, like I said last year. Okay, so we'll do that. So we will have a rewrite in probably the second calendar quarter next year. Distribution, town hall, library, Chamber of Commerce, Matthews Community Center, American Legion, VFW, we have a veteran represents VFW here, I gave him some last week. 3 barbershop, Bell's Barbershop, which is out towards the end of Old 51, near 74. He's a veteran friendly guy. Matthews Barbershop, which is right here in the center of town across from the park. In that little shopping area there. Okay. And Pappy's Cuts, David, who's been here, David Large, who's been here for many, many years with his family. His father started that business, he continues. Fire department, I think had 7, I brought a hand carry to them. Police department had 9, or vice versa, I hand carry to them. Levine Senior Center. Matthews Glen Senior Living Facility, I gave that to Bill Campbell last week, something to him. Windsor Run, American Legion's Veterans Day, on November 11th, I have a bunch here. We'll put on the Legion table and announce that we have them for anybody who doesn't have one, and let them come pick one up. And today, like I mentioned, the mayor, commissioners, and town manager have a copy. Okay, I know there are typos in this. You don't have to tell me. There's 3 of them for sure. Okay, there's some deletions to be made. I know that. Okay, and additions. Levine Senior Center, LL Flooring, which I thought was going out of business, but now they just moved next door. Outback. I had them, but I forgot to put them in. Maureen and I went there a couple weeks ago, and sure enough, they got 10%. Some more auto service centers and more to be discovered in Matthews Town Center. Okay. So I will be working on this again after the new year. I've had enough. So, any questions on this or my presentation? I'm here to answer.
Any questions for Jim?
No.
Thank you for the update. been to several MVAC meetings, and I think you guys have the most organized meetings of any of our advisory groups. I guess as part of being in the military. I would like to give a shout out to all the businesses that offer discounts to veterans. And I think this certainly shows that Matthews is a veteran. Thank you to all these businesses for honoring you by giving you a discount. Much deserved. Thank you, Jack. On to the consent agenda. Have you a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion, Mr. Mayor, that we accept the consent agenda A through 6.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Whitley, a second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. Any discussion? All in, Commissioner Thomas.
I just have a quick question about the GASB. Can you explain that to me, Ms. Hawk?
I believe our finance director is here. I will actually defer to her on this one.
Good evening. Yeah, the GASB 96 is a new ruling law that went into effect for the last fiscal year that ended June 30th, 23. And it tracks all software subscription-based technology, such as our financial system is a subscription-based system. The police department and the fire department use several different subscription-based softwares to track their call volumes, their different levels of things. And it also includes things like Microsoft, our Google account. I mean, everything that we access through the internet that we pay an annual subscription to have access to now has to be broken out and reported separately only once a year on the year-end financial statements as assets and liabilities to show the true extended cost beyond 1 year.
So the 636,000 plus is for 1 year?
Now that is to establish, because this is the first year of the program, so that establishes all of the assets. And, you know, we pay it annually, but we had to, for this new ruling, establish, you know, what we felt, you know, we're not just going to drop Edmonds at the end of December and not renew that subscription because we can't, you know, do that. So the standard required us to project the reasonable amount of years that we expect to extend the terms of all of those contracts. And then through a lot of different formulas that are built into the software that we actually use to help create these journal entries and establish whether these subscriptions apply to the law or not, figures out, you know, an inferred interest rate, even though there's not an interest rate on these things, so that we could have that journal entry. And there's no cash movement in that entry. It is a balance sheet entry only once a year at the end of the year. All of the expenditures are, of course, in the regular expenditure budget.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right, there's no further questions. We have a motion by Commissioner Whitley, a second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. All in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. If there's no objection, I'd like to swap A and B, the order that we discussed them, because I think A might get a little long, and we have a lot of veterans here tonight. So I'd like to go on to 8B first, consider options for pillars in Matthews Veterans Park, Memorial Park, and I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Tefano. But before I do that, I just want to say that I too campaigned very hard for the Veterans Memorial Park. And I have family members, my father, who's approaching 90 years old. They have bricks there. So this is very near and dear to me. Before we go to Commissioner Tefano to give a presentation on the pillars, I'd like to ask Commissioner Garner to kind of review the history of how we got here, and then I'll turn it over to Commissioner Tefano.
Actually, that was going to be part of my presentation, but that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so I will try and make this as brief as possible.
Thank you.
But, okay, so the project has been going on since 2021, I would say. On August 23rd, 2021, we approved the project design for this. And really what happened since the installation of the pillars has been a series of events, and I heard you, Commander Wilfong, say that you can't operate on a system of what ifs. So I will give some answers from a different sort of portion of my role as a commissioner serving on MVAC, or on MEAC, excuse me. The school design, so we have decided that you've heard about to vote to delay the pillar installation until after we know about the schools. We will know this November whether the school bonds are passed, and that's really sort of a predicating factor of whether the school will be rebuilt and Stumptown Park can move or not. And because Matthews Elementary is one of the oldest schools in the school system, it will be one of the first schools to be rebuilt. CMS believes that it can start construction in 2025. And what they would do is build. There are several options. So there's not anything concrete about where they would build, but if they build on the same site, it would be built towards the back of the property. And what is now Stumptown Park would move over to the front of that property. And so, you know, it could be 2 years, but I think the board made a decision to delay the pillars based on this November voting date, and we should have an answer by, you know, soon thereafter about the pillars. But to go back to sort of what happened once we were made aware, you know, the likelihood of the school being built and the school bonds going through, the board itself voted in. Let me see if I can find the date. September 26th of 2022, I made the motion to approve pausing advertisement for bids on construction, which includes the pillars. Commissioner Tufano seconded that, and that's when we as a board decided to pause the construction of those pillars. I think maybe if I expand a little bit more, and Corey King could probably correct me, but when we looked at the design of the park, it's not just building pillars, but it's also some grading, it's rebuilding the sidewalk. And there are a whole series of events that we're working together to get the price point we wanted for constructing the whole of the Veterans Park. Is that?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. And I'm sorry if that was redundant to what you were saying, Commissioner Fowler, before your second.
Thank you. About 4 years ago, Jack Centeniello whispered in the ear of our mayor and said, it would be nice if we could rename Stumptown Park, Stumptown Veterans Memorial Park. And all of the veterans in town got behind the idea, and we all went door to door. A lot of the people with passing out flyers are actually in the audience today. And Jack and his wife Marina actually handed out 600 on their own in Brightmoor. Little did Jack know that that innocent suggestion would set off a firestorm. So what had happened over the year that followed that is there was a great deal of opposition to renaming Stumptown Park as Stumptown Veterans Memorial Park. So with credit to the mayor and to those that were sitting on the commission at the time, the alternative, and which is actually an excellent one, was to take a section of the land in Stumptown Park and actually make it a pocket park called the Matthews Veterans Memorial Park. Excellent idea, excellent idea. And Mayor Higdon also, as mentioned by Jack Centeniello, was responsible for bringing the posters for the veterans to be displayed on Memorial Day throughout town. Mayor Higdon has been an outspoken, vocal advocate for veterans, and without his support and those that were on the commission at that particular time, there would not be a Matthews Veterans Memorial Park. Now, having said all of that, the vote that Commissioner Gardner referred to was not whether or not to build the pillars. It was whether or not to actually undertake the entire remodeling of Matthews Veterans Memorial Park, of which I seconded, because spending $300,000 in a situation where we thought there was going to be an imminent change was not a reasonable thing to do. So, but we're here tonight to talk about the pillars, not $300,000, maybe just $3,000 or $4,000, not to be determined yet based on quotations. But the pillars, what you're seeing right now is actually an artist rendering of a veteran artist that was part of the Matthews Veterans Artist Program. And if you could advance, Maureen, and this was his original conception, and over to the left would be the other pillars on the other side. If you could advance, thank you very much, Maureen. There was a line, a demarcation line that ran from left to right across the property, which was defining the parameters of the Matthews Veterans Memorial Park. So the original design was to have these pillars mimic those that were on each side of the love sculpture coming into the park. So they would be the same design, same height, same everything. Same construction, but with the exception of on each one pillar on each side would be a plaque saying Matthews Veterans Memorial Park. Now, this was part of the original design. It was approved. This original design was approved before the post 235 and all of the sponsorships that we had came into play. Many of the men and women that are in the audience today built that memorial with their bare hands. A lot of us actually molded the rebar and we poured the concrete. We did all of the landscaping. It was a major effort, and it wasn't just us. It was the Appearance and Tree Committee, the Boy Scouts, the Eagle Scouts, the Girl Scouts. I mean, the entire community came behind this project. It was a massive undertaking. We finished it in 3 months without a single penny spent by the town, except for the cost of the mural, the actual painting of the mural. And the only reason for that is because it's a public art and the town of Matthews had to take responsibility for it. That mural, by the way, for those of you that may not have realized it, on Memorial Day, this past Memorial Day in Mecklenburg County, took recognition of all the memorials within Mecklenburg County. The Matthews Veterans Memorial Park was on their home base page. That's how much they thought of it. So having said all of that, it's time, I think, to take action. And we can discuss this during the discussion part of the motion, but my motion is to place 2 pillars on each side of Matthews Veterans Memorial Park at the lines of demarcation, for them to be the same design and structure as the pillars on each side of the Love Museum, and for them to be installed before Veterans Day this year, which is November 11th. Do I have a second?
I have a question.
Mr. Woodard.
Mark, I have a question. I'm not opposing the motion, but I thought we were talking about designing them that they could be temporary to be picked up, and I'd like that to be in the record, that if we design these, that we can, as somebody say, pick them up off of the pole and move them to somewhere.
I will gladly amend that motion, that they be designed in such a way and constructed in such a way that they can be transported.
Mr. Garner.
This, to me, caused a lot of questions about structural integrity and engineering. And so I guess first I have would like to know the background of the walls that were built and the engineer behind those designs and how they were approved and what liability that leaves on the town, and then what building pillars would also do for the town. as far as liability.
Sure, and you're referring to the existing wall that is along Trade Street?
No, I'm referring to the walls that were built by the Legion's dollars.
So given that they are on town property, part of our park, we would assume liability for all of them, should there be an issue with any of them.
And what's the typical sort of, just maybe a question for Corey, but the typical process of getting structures approved for a public park, especially with concern that children will climb on them and people will lean on them?
So we would only be interested in licensed, bonded, insured vendors who, have the right background and criteria to be able to design and install those, because they will be climbed on. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, or what else you're looking for.
So I'm looking for comfort that somebody is not going to be squished by hundreds of pounds of brick.
Related to the columns, or related to the other work that has been done there?
All of the above.
So I can't speak to the work that was done. We can certainly, I haven't been made aware of any issues with it. So it appears safe and secure. We can certainly double check that. But any work that the town undertakes, we would certainly be looking to contract that work out with a qualified vendor.
Is that an RFP process?
Based on the dollar amounts that we anticipate for this, we would be below an RFP threshold. We would be able to do a 3 quotes type of approach. We wouldn't have to go out and do a formal RFP for the columns only. For the construction, those previous dollar amounts that we were talking about, that would have been an RFP process because it throws over the thresholds.
Thank you for answering. I have one more question, and that is, the goal was to wait until November to better understand what the process for the school is. And the flip side is that if this park stays in place, we will be putting pillars in, right? And that will involve a full $300,000 design process of grading and widening the sidewalk and adding bricks and patio areas, as well as other sort of design elements to this. If we put out an RFP for, for the, I guess not a full RFP, but if we put it out and asked for 3 quotes on this, it's August, the end of August now, what is the turnaround? September, October, so, 3 months. Is the turnaround quicker than that?
So I think the question really comes down to material. So at the last board meeting, there was discussion about some alternative building materials that are notably more portable than a traditional brick and mortar column structure. That was the work that Parks Director Corey King was undertaking to be able to bring that back to the board. What do those look like? Is the board happy with the look? What is the cost of those? And then if the board wanted to move forward with that, we would implement that. As far as fabrication and timing, I don't have that information right now. If there's a traditional brick and mortar, similar to what's demonstrated on the screen right now, that would be a faster process because that's more of a traditional building approach. Those quotes could be delivered, I believe, within a couple weeks max. And then I do believe installation could be relatively fast. I think the discussion that we had previously was, are those movable or not? And so is the board interested in investing in traditional brick and mortar that may not be able to be reused in its existing form should the park move?
Sounds like we're discussing it anyways, so for the purposes of discussion, can I have someone second Commissioner Tefano's motion and we can wordsmith it or vote it up or down? We have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Boothby. Couple comments I want to make, and I'd like to ask Corey if you can come up. I got a few questions for you, sir. The first one was there was never an intent not to put signage up. Just so what was, when we talked about signage, what did you envision in that process?
The signage was,
It's
was going to be, the information that's gonna displayed on the conflict monuments. There's also call it a welcome sign, a description near the entrance. There's a description of the mural plan. I think that was it. There was also
So the signage would be up near the mural or something.
yeah, so yeah, okay,
Sorry, where do you want me to go?
so going
Toward
from
this?
yes, right to left. So where the two blocks are, there would be there was a plan to have one sort of descriptive sign.
Sorry, can you point that out where that would be?
So on this edge, so this would be you are now entering into Matthews Better.
What would that signage look like?
Uh,
What would it be made out of?
much like what we have with the Heritage Trail, the slanted face, call it a metal material. That was the idea.
Okay, I mean, go ahead and show us what the other signage would be.
So that welcome sign, descriptive sign of the mural. Still working through on the plan. There was also a sign here that sort of talked about the brick program. And then also, of course, the words about the conflicts will be actually on the memorials there.
And what did we anticipate the cost of all that to be? Or have you got that?
So right now we have roughly $13,000. There was another cost that we added, which was additional dollars paying someone to come up with the actual wording that's going to be on the sign.
Thank you, Commissioner Garner.
I do want to point out, and maybe it makes more sense that we look at the actual approved design. I understand that this was the design approved by the Legion, but the design approved by the board was one by Stewart Engineers, and it's, was significantly different, but different enough that if we're looking at this, I don't want us to get confused about what the actual park design will look like. Is that, it was, so if, I don't, Maureen, do you think you could pull it up? It's from, the packet, August 23rd, and I think it was page 41.
What meeting?
21. August 21st, or August 23rd, 2021.
August 23rd, 2021. Nope.
It must be 45.
So similar, but a little different. So thank you for that. I guess my point was we were already anticipating spending $13,000 to $20,000 for signage. It just wouldn't be on pillars necessarily. You know, I forgot who brought it up. It might have been mentioned making these pillars movable. I suppose they could be made that way, but I went to North Carolina State where everything's made out of red brick, and every time they try to move anything, it just crumbles. So I know it has to be made in a certain way. If you tilt one of those columns at about a 5-degree angle, it'll just fall apart. You've got to pick it up 90 degrees, hold it perfectly straight, can't be jostled around. there may be, some method to construct it, or a slide over something that's different.
Yeah, I was told that there is a way, if they know ahead of time, there's a way to construct it with a tool.
And I do share Commissioner Gardner's concern about they have to be ultimately, I think everybody wants it to be, we go with that to be extremely safe, because there will be kids running up and jumping onto them and stuff. Commissioner Fun, your comment?
Yes, these pillars are in keeping with the design of the current park. It'll be years before any other action is taken on the CMS properties. These will be easily constructed, very rapidly constructed. They can be made in such a way that they're transportable. And again, they're in keeping with the current design. The motion still stands.
Mayor Pro Tem McCool?
Is there an expected cost? I mean, do we have like any range of idea?
Well, I can just say that the two curvature walls, which were 2 truckloads of concrete and steel rebar and hundreds of concrete block, in both in-kind contributions and in dollars, came to less than $6,000.
Commissioner Urban?
So, like any motion, most board members want to have more specificity. And Commissioner Fano will definitely indicate he's been on board many times asking for that level of criteria. What's going to cost, and of course, it's inflation, escalator, whatever. I guess my question is built very rapidly. What does that mean in terms of somehow it's not a sign, it's a structure. So it has to be however designed. Someone's going to sketch something out. Someone's going to sign and seal it. Someone's going to take it to Mecklenburg County, and you push it through the system and then build it. Maybe it can be done by November 11th from that standpoint. But let me back up the proverbial half step though. Just to be clear, I think what Commissioner Garner was saying was that yes, there was a motion made. And I wasn't even here. It was on September 26, 2022. It was for the temporary hold on this particular project until such time we could get deliverables in CMS. So I'm wondering, is this rushed to November 11th? I know it's a very historic day and true to the hearts of everybody, but are those 4 columns, the lifeblood of that memorial in light of getting this information down pat the way we're expecting this board to have it? I understand the situation. It's interesting because I've always wondered about this design. I never really commented too much about it, but with the pillars being there, are you referring to this as a place in which you cross into that's exclusive, or without the pillars being there, is it more inclusive of the entire park? So you don't know whether or not the Veterans Memorial Park is the entire park, or by putting the columns up, it's a separate part of the park, just sort of a piece of puzzle there. I don't think you would do anything temporary unless you're talking about actually constructing a sign, which could be done a little differently, but it would probably, to the point of being contextual, it would be different. But I don't have an answer on this, but we typically don't go into motions with the what ifs. It may cost $6,000, it may cost $8,000. I think what we're going to saying is we have a little more exact to it. And I would suspect that it would go through our public works department. How would that go? Would it be an engineer in our department sketching something out, or would it go outside that?
So I guess it really depends on what, I guess, is decided on being built. Right now, the only thing we have designed is, what shown here is brick, it's concrete. We have that as part of the construction documents with a bigger part of the project. So that is designed. But if there's a new idea, then that would have to be.
So you have the peers by the original civil engineer are engineered.
Yes.
And is that permanent? You have to take it out of set and submit it permanent.
When we talked, we did not. So it's at 100%, but it is not. They say on the documents, not for construction.
Because this was wrapped into the entire project.
It was. Yes.
So you have to pull it out of the project, right? They'd have to pull it out and then submit it. Okay.
We have the specs on it. It is 5 feet tall, and anything above 4 feet, I believe, needs.
Anything over 4 feet has to be.
Yeah, so The exact process, I'd have to, I guess, dig into it if it's the decision to see what.
Okay, so if the board approves it, you're still gonna have to go through a very strenuous regimen of getting that design finalized, submitted. I don't, I think the question was about costing of them back, so. Okay. Thank you.
Clarifying question, would these pillars be in lieu of the other signage?
No,
So other signage is going forward, and
we're rolling with that.
Mr. Garner.
Next, the election day is before November 11th, right? So if we just were to wait and see how the bonds go before moving forward with pillars, the sidewalk would be widened for this portion. Is that correct? I mean, if we put them up where the sidewalk is now, that's not going to stay if we construct the full park.
Correct. So actually, the image shown, like that slope, we would adjust that slope or reduce that slope to make it more ADA compliant. Same thing on the other side.
So we back.
But we have to report the sidewalk with the bigger part of the project. That's the decision.
Commissioner Whitman.
Thank you.
I am a retired captain, 30 years of Highway Patrol, and not a veteran, but I am a retired from the state of public service. I know how important that is and what it means to our veterans. I am 110% behind the veterans. I think I expressed my opinion when we voted on that. Men and women have given our lives to service. I know sometimes, and I was listening about safety issue, and anytime you build anything, there's an inspector. John, when people come in, they make sure that it's safe before it's approved. So I was making sure that when I listened about these signs of entrance being able to be moved, I was glad to hear you say that you had contacted somebody that they could be transformed. You know, timing is everything. We are only about 3 months away from November. But you know, I've lived a long time and understand that sometimes when you give your whole life as a team, some things that you want, tomorrow is not promised. I'm a living witness of that more than one time. And what the veterans are asking is not too much. And what they ask is not too expensive. We've done things many, many times before to move forward and bring the estimate back. And I pretty much got an idea of what marketing and the veterans is saying, what these bricks would cost. I've had a brick mailbox built very similar to this size, and I know what I paid for that, and it can do that times 4. We're not talking. I certainly wouldn't think of $1,000 per column. So it's about 4, maybe 6,000 at the max. Anyway, I'm in 110% in favor of abilities calling portable. Let the veterans go ahead with it now, and if it passes in November, tomorrow's not promised, but today is. And I've heard somebody say, we don't make a whim on what year, and we're not a what year. But I have a dear part, my father-in-law, there's a brick out there as well too. As a matter of fact, Mount Moriah. Company Mark, we purchased about 15, 18 bricks.
Yes, you did.
And we had a special dedication for the
Ceremony.
black soldiers that had served in town of Matthews. So it's very sentimental to me as well. Also my chairman of my deacon board, Lieutenant Colonel Fred Baylor.
Yes, sir.
That is retired, part of yours as well too. So I commend you. What I really commend is that you took initiative back those many years to make something better. I truly believe that you all make things better than it was when you got there. And we have. And I said we have.
Yes, sir.
Made it better. This this little 4 columns along with the plaque, I think with the act set to it, make it look really nice, and if we had to move, we would. But if we don't, then it's there, whether it be 3 or 4 years coming down the line, so I just wanted to, my support is for going forward with these 4 columns. How portable, be nice, very messed up. It's beautiful. I'm looking at the pictures. It's a long way from where we come from. George Foster, and I'm rambling. I was on the board and when we first organized the veterans. Shortly after then, George had cancer, and I was a cancer survivor. He asked me to be his mentor through his process, and I did. And I don't know if a lot of you know, but I did George's eulogy at my church. The service was held there. So I have a really special part in my heart for the veterans and for where you are, where you come from. And we have come a long way, but that's all I want to say. I think we can make that nice and move forward. But this is portable and be able to save, and engineers will make sure that's safe. And they some kids on bump up against it. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Gardner.
Commissioner Whitley, I know that they will make it safe. I guess my question is more about the timing than it is, about how long it would take to go to an engineer and get a portable pillar designed and then get it back. And if we go through that process and then find out within a matter of days what our plans are for the park, how do we manage that timeline? Or if the pillars are going to stay in place and we put them in one place, but they really just need to be, 2 feet either side. Is that good planning, or is, I'm not sure. I don't have an answer. I'm just sort of wondering out loud.
Well, the answer is this. We're talking that if we even voted to build or transfer in November, we're talking about breaking around 2025. Those pillars are there now. And then if we have to move it over 2 or 3 years later, then we can do that. That's the answer. And you don't have to worry about the timing. Time is going to come and time is going to go. But these veterans are asking for that. And I don't think it's too much to give them for the time and the service that they run in this great country. Not to say so. Thank you.
Well, the alternative is that in November, we could also say it makes sense to leave the park where it is. And so now it's time to build a wider sidewalk and move these pillars, as I'm saying, put to either side.
I'd like to just make a couple comments. First, I want to make sure that the folks that are listening to this and the veterans that are in attendance tonight know that what we voted on delaying was a $300,000 or $400,000 project. That did not seem like wise use of our taxpayer money for it to move pretty soon. So we're talking about just pillars. Second comment I want to make is if these pillars truly cost $1,000 each as designed, is that not true? If they're that cheap, build them and tear them down, who cares?
Just, I will share. Initially, I did get quotes to build it as designed.
As is,
And it was anywhere, well, I got 3. The lowest was 13,000 and the highest was around 17.
for all 4 of them. Commissioner Fung.
A local contractor built those walls, those pure curved walls. And he could quote you something, I would say, probably 10 to 20% of what you were quoted. In other words, and I gave that information to the town manager. He's a local contractor, he's well respected, and he's worked for the town before. And he's very inexpensive and very quick. He could build these things literally within a few days.
Commissioner Hoover.
Did you apply for the grant? Did you apply for the grant
The grant.
with us?
I'm sorry.
April 25th, 2022. Mr. King noted that staff plans to apply for a grant to support the project. The award could be up to $50,000, and there was no cash match required by the town, so there was no funding commitment required.
That was, yes, that was a T-Mobile community grant. We did apply and with this project and on the application, and we did not receive the funding for it.
You did not get the grant.
We didn't win.
Okay, okay, just curious, wonder, because I'm trying to figure out with the money. And kind of go back to what Commissioner Urban spoke about, is this something Public Works can do, build these pillars?
I mean, we have some talented people in Public Works. I don't think they would, I don't think we would put them to the test of building those.
Because, I'm looking at those bricks right there in the picture, and you can go to Lowe's and buy those bricks for 98 cents a brick.
Right, that is correct.
And $4 a bag for concrete mix. Now, I know there's more planning involved with it, but I don't think they're gonna be that expensive to build. That's just me.
I'll be glad to get another quote.
I mean, and if Public Works is able to do something like that, that's wonderful. That would help saving costs. You know,
So-
because I know they're worried about costs if we have to knock them down. But I don't know. I'm just looking at it, this isn't clicking for me. I'm sorry. I don't understand the argument over this because all they are pillars to, in honor of our veterans. As the saying goes, all gave some gave all. And we need to honor these people, and all they're asking for are these pillars. That's it. And there's nothing set in stone on CMS yet. So for me, just build them. Even if you have to knock them down. So what? We've wasted money in this town before.
So my recommendation would be to allow Corey to continue with the prior direction that the board gave, which was to investigate the alternative building methods as well as investigate the more traditional building methods, whether it's with the ability to move the pillars eventually, or if that is just not something that the town is particularly concerned with, can bring those three options back to the board with costs, with timelines, and then the board can make a decision at that point. But given the height of the pillars, given the requirements that we have to follow from a liability standpoint, I cannot recommend that this work is not completed by licensed contractors who are qualified to build vertically. And so at that point, then the board could make a decision with actual numbers in hand based on what the market is saying that will cost and the timelines. Whether or not we could meet timelines before Veterans Day, I don't have an answer for that right now, but certainly I know Corey would be happy to move on this as quickly as possible.
Commissioner Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, well, those who knew George, and I did know George, he was a salty old dog. He'd probably be up here right now complaining there's a lot of folks campaigning that these discussions were vetted and voted upon and moved forward. That's the way he was. But in saying that, though, he handled the construction institute, he was a contractor, and he would want it done right. I do not think portability is a value here. What he's telling me is that there's a design out there. It's engineered. It just needs to be pulled out of that package. I don't know how much you're going to expedite it, but I would trust the work of that civil engineer and structural engineer on those pillars to go in that direction and you build those as a permanent thing. However, it has to be firmly coordinated with the future work, because how many times have we seen somebody digging in the road? They pass the road back. 3 months later, someone's digging up that road again because they're moving the sidewalk substations. So I want to be cautious about that. We know exactly what that means. But I would say we're going to have to dish the portability. If you let me send my brick guy out there, I will find a match. I'm sure I can get a manufacturer to donate the brick to you. But I think if you want to expedite this, which I think is pretty tough, you need to stick with the design that was at hand, that was already engineered. You get them to pull it out of that set, permit it, and move forward.
I agree 1,000%. I think the portability, if you're going to do brick, is probably going to cost 3 or 4 times as much as this design?
Well, it's not even designed yet, so you gotta find somebody to design it, so why not just go with what you have engineered, you know, it's engineered. You know, it's gonna be a cost attributed to it from that standpoint, I'm not gonna get into a bag of cement, whatever it costs. But, you know, that's your path of least resistance at this stage in the game to get something up, provided that someone's coordinating this thing and pillars and built for the sidewalk or something like that. Other than that, let's just move this ball forward, just not turn this discussion, this horse into blue.
Mr. Spano,
This is the kind of discussions that we've been having for 3.5 years. Enough is enough. Build the 2 pillars as specified. Do whatever you have to do engineering wise and whatever. They need to be in place by Veterans Day, November 11th. The motion still stands and that's part of the motion. I'm asking for a vote.
we can't guarantee when they're gonna be built, Mark.
If you cannot go out and find a contractor and design these things and build these things in 3 months, there's something dramatically wrong. We built that entire Veterans Memorial in 2 months. So there's no real excuse anymore. Enough is enough.
Okay, now,
Because you say it doesn't make it so. I mean, you-
Very
you
well.
can
All I'm
say
asking
whatever.
for is a vote.
That's fine. Is there other comments? What is the motion, please?
The motion, Lori, would you repeat it by verbatim, please?
Motion is to place 2 pillars on each side of the park for them to be the same design and structure as the existing work, for them to be installed before Memorial Day this year, before Veterans Day this year. And that motion was amended to be designed and constructed in such a way that they can be transported.
Can I ask Mayor Pro Tem? Can I ask a question? I guess I don't really see how that's way different than what Commissioner Urban just said. I think, you know, get them built, put it out to bid to 3 people and get it built as close to Veterans Day as you can. I think that's what he said. I don't see the severe difference between the two, maybe just wording, but.
I think we are now saying they don't have to be transported.
No.
Say it again. I'm saying we don't have a design for that, so you have to get somebody to design that type. That's why time is of the essence. We don't even have a design for a transportable.
I'm just trying to see if there's a compromise. I think maybe we're on the same playing field, talking a different language, so we can all get through this. I want to say no.
Just amend the motion to remove the portability, just to construct them in a timely fashion, but you can't, I don't, even if you set a deadline on here, you don't make it, what's that do to you? I mean,
I know, but I don't want to look at these folks in the face and say, we will have it by November.
I would think in today's environment,
We can make every effort to make that happen, but I can't guarantee that.
Could the wording be changed to make every effort and make them not portable? And if they have a compromise, we can move forward and do something right for veterans.
leave the motion off, that's all.
Is that amendable, Mark?
Okay, what's the suggested amendment?
It's
To not make them portable.
just, well, it's placed 2 pillars on each side of Matthews Veterans Memorial Park, a total of 4, for to be the same design structure as indicated on the drawings, and that they be installed per the design as, what was the name of it? Stuart Engineering for the park.
And I also specified, Lori, that perhaps it didn't make it into the minutes. I believe I specified that there would be a plaque on each side stating Matthews Veterans Memorial Park.
That's in the design.
Yes.
Design.
Can I ask a question? We're going to call for a vote shortly. Is it possible to place these pillars such that they could accommodate the sidewalk being widened without tearing them down, or do you have to have somebody?
We can make an educated guess about where those
Okay. Is that acceptable as well?
Yes, of course.
So a couple points on that, though, that when if the full park is built, there's actually some grading that would probably cause the pillars to need to be moved. So even if you try to place them for the sidewalk, the grading would probably undo that effort. But we can we can try to be thoughtful about, is there anything that can be done? And I do have one clarifying question for Corey, based on the existing approved design. Looks like might need a minute to pull that back up on the screen.
Which one?
The approved design, that
This
one,
one?
the pillars on the left-hand side of the screen. Are those able to be placed there currently with the existing playground, or are those in conflict?
They are in conflict. The pillars would actually be further south.
I thought I asked for that amendment, that they would be, you could draw a straight line across the pillars. Remember us having that discussion?
Yeah, to put it straight across, the pillar is visibly in the playground.
So I just want to clarify that the pillars on the left-hand side can be installed somewhere on the left-hand side, but there are safety requirements that we need to abide by to keep them a safe distance from the existing playground equipment. And so in an effort to install the pillars without having to also move the playground equipment, we would be looking for some flexibility on placement in order to not have them be a safety issue with the existing playground equipment.
Correct. Yes. Thank you.
The horse is dead and we beat it long and hard. It's time to call for the vote. We will make every effort to have these installed if this passes by November 11th. Is that what? I just don't will fall and hold me up against the wall. I work my pillars, I think, so we'll make every effort. So I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. If there's no further discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. I'm sorry. You voted.
I voted against it, and because I would like there to be a cost associated with it. We don't know what the costs are going to come back to us, and we're putting blindly on putting school pillars in place that may cost $25,000.
Okay, so that passes 6-1 with Commissioner Garner for the position. Let's take about a 5-minute break.
Yes.
Agent Gardner.
I recuse myself.
All right, we're gonna go back to the original item 8A, which is discuss use of available funding options for various projects. Ms. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. This is a continuation of your 5:30 at your last meeting, where we were discussing a number of projects that had been brought to your attention previously with the hopes that we would be able to use some of our ARPA allocation for it. But as costs have increased, we have more projects than money. And so we wanted to complete an exercise for you. The ask was to take a look at the projects, take a look at the available funding options, and make some recommendations regarding how to proceed. So there's a lot of information in the memo, but I think probably the fastest and most concise way to look at everything is, Maureen, if you wouldn't mind scrolling to the last page to the table. Thank you. So this really just tries to condense the information contained in the memo into a visual to help make things quite clear. So the recommendation for the fire station, you've got two columns checked there. The first is the ARPA funds, and then the second is general fund balance. I believe based on the current cost of the fire station, it's about $79 would need to come out of the general fund balance. The remaining could be covered by existing ARPA funds. This would exhaust all remaining ARPA funds that have not previously been spent or allocated for other purposes. So we would be spending the remaining $6.6 million of ARPA funds on the fire station, but based on the existing costs of that station, we would be able to move forward with that project without taking on any debt in order to complete construction. And again, these are just recommendations from staff for the board to consider. The next one is the town hall hoodroom audio visual upgrades. This is recommended to take out that financing because those items can be used as collateral. So we are still in the RFP process. We will not have that information back until September 1st. But the previous estimates that we had were around $400,000 for all of the upgrades needed to this room. And we're hoping that they come in lower. But if you did pursue debt financing for that, the total of $436,000 does include the anticipated interest over a 3-year term for the completion of that project. The recommendation for that would be to look at revenues towards the end of this current fiscal year. If revenues are coming in better than we budgeted, then that would create an opportunity if the board wanted to pay off either all or a portion of that project ahead of time. That would certainly save us interest payments, and that would save us from having to program that into future budgets. But just based on available funding sources, we do think that debt financing is the best route to go for that project.
I've got a question. What all does that include? It seems like we could have a Rolling Stones concert for $400.
You would be amazed. You're right. You would be amazed at what these cost. So so basically the entire system, the guts of it are original to the building. So it's a 20-year-old system at this point, and so they would need to rip out the entire system and start from scratch on the audio side of things. I know that there would be camera systems that would be integrated. I believe that total did include a new screen for
Maybe.
Amazingly, that total might not even get us a new screen.
That screen's relatively new.
So I don't recall.
16.
Remember when we bought it, it's not projector.
So the projector would be a part of it. There's different technologies out there that exist that you might have seen in some other facilities that are a lot more dynamic, more almost more like a TV screen than just a traditional projector. But we are looking at all options for that. We do have a very affordable but very competent expert who is helping us to analyze these quotes as they come in to make sure that we're getting a good deal, getting the right product for the room. So we won't be moving blind on looking through those proposals.
One more comment,
Sure.
I would just say that just about after every meeting that we have, somebody tells me that tried to watch it online, but I couldn't hear what we're saying. Definitely necessary, because people are trying to watch this virtually or not, many times not being able to hear what we're saying.
We agree. On the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the recommendation is to use general fund balance to go ahead and be able to move forward. We do need to issue an RFP based on the cost of that plan. And so those would be figures that we'd be able to firm up before we move forward. But given the number of park parcels that we have acquired and the future plans for a lot of the parks, being able to update our master plan that is currently from 2005 would be very helpful to a lot of the planning and execution that we expect to undertake with our parks in the coming years. So using cash on hand would allow us to move forward most quickly on that. And because it's a plan, you can't take out debt without using something else as collateral. The community center audio and visual upgrades, those are qualifying for use of tourism funds, and we do have sufficient tourism fund balance to move forward on that $57,000 expense if the board would like. So that's another opportunity to pay cash from our tourism fund savings accounts to be able to move forward on that project if the board so desires. Pushing things forward, we are recommending that we pause on the bike and pedestrian connection from Riverbanks to 4 Mile Creek. That estimated cost of $156,000. It's not a huge number, but just with the other demands and the other opportunities, we do know that this would qualify for inclusion in our general obligation fund proceeds for your parks and recreation projects. So if there were excess funds left over, you could lump it into another project when you execute those bonds. If there turned out to not be funds left over, if the board didn't want to pursue that, then we could program it into a future CIP. It would probably be a number of years before we would come back to that. And finally, one of the bigger topics of discussion for a future board meeting is related to the town stormwater assessment. Phase 1 alone is $650,000. To assess the entire system over 10 years is approximately $3.5 million. It's recommended that you cycle through and continue that assessment. So you're cycling through your system to reassess. So essentially it becomes an ongoing expense of about $330,000 to $350,000. It really goes toward a bigger discussion that we would like the board to undertake probably this late winter, early spring related to our stormwater fees. They've not been increased since 2016. We are now exceeding the revenues just with basic expenditures. And so we do think that it's time to look at the fees, look at the needs of our stormwater program. And if the board desires an increase in stormwater fees in a future budget year, would be a potential opportunity to fund that as well as other needs of the program. If that is not the desire of the board, then the only other option you would have would be not doing it or some other type of debts or some other major pause on that. There's just not the funding to pull that off otherwise.
Commissioner Gardner.
You just can't really answer my question, I think, but I want to clarify. Stormwater fees are set by the town. Does the county also collect stormwater fees? And if so, do they come back to the town?
So that is a good question that I don't know offhand. I know our fees show up on your Charlotte water bill. And so I would have to check on whether we pay separately. We do have partnership opportunities with Mecklenburg County's OASA, but we actually pay them to complete some of those services on our behalf. Some of the enforcement of stormwater violations and things like that are handled by the county, but we pay them to perform that service for us.
And do we do stormwater upkeep with, on DOT roads, or is DOT in charge of that? So they have their own, their own assessment program for those roads.
DOT would be responsible for anything within the right of way on their streets, but their level of assessments, I couldn't speak to that. Part of what CJ and I have talked about is a comprehensive look at who else is doing assessments, what do those look like, what are other communities charging for stormwater fees? Excuse me, because we want to make sure that our fees are in alignment with what others are charging. But we haven't had an increase since 2016. When that increase was made, we anticipated we would need another one as early as 2021. Here we are in 24, we're still the same rates. So we're really kind of bumping up with the existing revenues already, let alone some of the things that we believe we should be undertaking.
Becky, this $650,000 for the first phase of the assessment includes no repair, it's just running a camera, wires,
That's correct. It's mapping the entire system so that you know what's where for starters, but also the condition, any issues that you might have within the lines. So it really helps them inform your preventative maintenance as well as repairs that might be needed. And so then when you have an issue, you're able to better assess and address the problem. But ideally, you're getting to the issues before they become problems.
They were paying for lack of mapping by our predecessors. I know Charlotte has a lot of the same issues. I started thinking like, holy cow, we didn't know this was here, and all kinds of stuff. Commissioner Urban, and then I'll go back to Commissioner Thomas.
So a lot of this came about, the assessment came about because of Main Street, the flooding, right? So that was the first lift. So what you're saying, the proposal here is to deal with stormwater assessment, but build the mapping into that conversation and kind of have follow parallel as we move forward. Meaning that you're doing stormwater work every year, you're mapping and assessing, it's sort of an ongoing thing, as opposed to just neglecting it and then having to hit later on. So it's a twofold, this is a twofold task. Mapping and assessment and stormwater repair.
Correct. So the 650 only
Is the first
covered the
assessment.
cost of the phase one of the town, which happens to be the oldest area of town, kind of in the downtown area where we've got the oldest lines. But in talking to CJ, that was really sort of a big chunk, right out the gate, just from being able to figure out how to divide up the town. Really kind of a best practice would be remapping every portion of the system every 10 years, because you're going to have degradation, you're going to have new issues come up. But about a 10-year cycle for every portion is sufficient. The total cost to map the entire town is about 3.3 to 3.5 million. This was just a first portion of what would
Right,
ultimately
but if
cost
you
us
do the
that
fee
much.
increase though, you're building that, you're baking the cake. I mean, saying next year it's covering, next year you're gonna have that.
Exactly. So, right now we receive about $903,000 in revenue from our stormwater fees, and that doesn't now quite cover just the salaries and some of the routine maintenance funding that is put into that budget. So we're already exceeding the revenues with just basic expenses. So in looking at what to do with the stormwater fees, you would want to, if you do raise them, you would want to increase them enough to cover your mapping, and then also have sufficient funds coming in to be able to also fund repairs.
So this is the perfect parallel conversation with the roads. Same scenario.
Can's been kicked.
Can't kick,
Yes.
and we just can't keep up with it. Okay.
Should have been a stormwater assessment.
Yes.
That's all I can say. Commissioner Tafano.
Yes, Ms. Hawk, has the documentation of this proceeded to such a point where you actually have a deliverable details? The actual document of the deliverables?
The document of what?
The deliverables. In other words, what are we getting for this 650,000? The actual deliverable.
The deliverable would be the mapped portion of a part of downtown or a part of town. CJ has identified what that portion would be. So I guess I'm not sure what exactly you're
Yeah, in
asking.
other words, we're paying 650,000 for an assessment. What are we gonna get for it?
Oh, it would be the entire mapping. It would be the
Right, but I mean,
technology that would give us the ability to
Right,
be
that's
able
what
to
I was
see
asking. Are we
information.
far enough along in the process where you actually have that document, the deliverable document?
We haven't funded any of it.
No, but I mean, have you done preliminary studies to determine, well, you came up with this cost, so it must be some estimate involved somewhere.
So CJ came up with that figure by talking to a company that does this work.
Ah, okay. One other question. Stormwater fees, they show up separately on a homeowner's bill?
They are outlined in your City of Charlotte water bill.
Okay, so any increase that we assess, and it comes back to us, is going to be on top of their taxes. In other words, it's an extra assessment.
It's built into the cost of receiving water service based on the amount of impermeable surface you have on your specific property.
So we would have to increase our assessment that the county assesses and returns that money to us by $650,000 is what you're saying.
So it depends on how much you want to receive in increased revenue. So this is a single cost. We are proposing to bring you a comprehensive look at everything that the program needs, which we don't have prepared today. So as an example, though, if you wanted to double the amount of revenue that you receive to be able to fund assessments like this and also have a large cushion to be able to actually complete a lot of the stormwater work, if you doubled your rates, I believe the lowest rate that a homeowner pays right now is something like $1.58 a month for the stormwater fee. So it would be $3.19 instead of $1.58. But that is on a per monthly cost. So, but it's early days for that. All we're suggesting right now is pause, and we will be bringing more information to the board after the new year.
Very well, thank you.
Commissioner Hoover.
Okay, quick question. Have we done a stormwater assessment before in the past? This will be the first time whenever we follow through with it. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. This may be a question for CJ, but I'll ask you anyway. Are you aware of Charlotte Water doing a similar assessment on our water?
I don't know about water, but I do know that the city of Charlotte does complete this type of assessment on their stormwater system.
Yeah, I'm aware that there's considerable leakage. You know, they pump 1 million gallons of water, about 800,000 that gets used, and the rest of it evaporates or leaks or goes through. So, stormwater
Or get spilled out down the street.
in front of our stuff, right? Okay, so is there any other comment on this? We asked staff to kind of put this together. Is there any comment on the recommendations? Is everybody here in agreement? I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Well, I guess that's the question is, it sounds like, based on what I'm seeing, ignoring the fire station, the town hall woodroom, recapping, banking staff are saying loan, park and recs, they're saying use fund balance, community center, tourism funds, they're asking for pause on stormwater, pause on the PED connection, and it's got the NA or no action on Jordan. That's why I'm very comfortable in that kind of attack, because we talked about the nature of the ARPA funds and the projects and borrowing money, which ones are most effective. So it seems like, other than the fire station aspect of it, all the other ones in the outline are uncomfortable.
Commissioner Garner.
I did ask Becky for sort of an outlook on the CIP and future debt and when it rolls off. And so just for board consideration, I think it might be helpful to look at those projections.
Sure, if we can actually start with that, Maureen, thank you, and maybe make it bigger if we can, thank you. Okay, yes, happy to provide this. So just a reminder of the debt obligations. So this is the debt that is currently sitting on the town's books. And so in our general fund, we have 3 items that we have payments to make in FY '24. They include the general obligation bond for South Trade Street and Fullwood improvements. And so that is $387,250 in FY '24. That does tick down about $5,000 every year, but we are only, when did that start? FY 15 or 16 was our first payment. So we're 12 or 13 years away from paying off that debt. So we're kind of right in the middle of paying that. But right now with our current tax rate, the $387,000, that's going to be just over half a penny is going to go to paying off that debt. The only other remaining items, we have the Levine Senior Center. This is our final payment this year when we took over that facility. That was an 8-year term and we are to the end of it. So this will be our final debt payment of $95,551. So that will be freed up revenue, if you will, in the FY '25 budget. And then just starting this year, we had our first payment due in FY '24 for the new rescue truck. It's about $94,000 a year. That is a 10-year term. And so we will be making that for the next 9 years after this year. Really all things considered, a very nominal amount of debt. We use less than 1% of our total debt capacity as a town, which is a very healthy position to be financially and really unusual actually. So any questions on that? Otherwise we can pull up the CIP sheets. Good. Okay. And the caveat to these is I had an opportunity to lap off FY '21 and FY '22 and made some quick changes within them of some things that jumped out that I knew were accurate or not. But I think really kind of the purpose of these, there's 5 different categories of projects. This is not an adopted capital improvements plan. I want to be very clear about that. This was really just trying to put together over the years and try to stay on top of all of the projects that we know about, that the board desires to complete, that we know are coming. If we know amounts and we know required timelines, we plug those in. A lot of DOT projects have been pushed all over the place. Maureen, if you just want to maybe kind of scroll through these, I won't go through all the projects one by one. Again, they're grouped by category, but this is just meant to demonstrate a lot of the things that we either have in the works. Some of these have been pulled out as bond projects as well, or have been paused. So you can keep scrolling. Happy to stop on any of them that anyone may have questions about.
Couple of those for billions.
Could we get a copy of this, maybe with draft or something for your stamp to process? Because I think it's helpful to see where there are some years where there's going to be more pressure than others planning for the future, and maybe something like the stormwater assessment, if that would that fit into capital, or is it since it's planning or?
I think a lot of it comes down to funding philosophy. So we have, at least since we last increased rates in 2016, we have operated stormwater as a semi-enterprise fund. So we have only utilized stormwater revenues to handle stormwater related expenses. So anything related to stormwater has not been supported by the general fund. It's all been supported from that stormwater fee revenue. If you wanted to deviate from that, if you wanted to not increase the stormwater fee, we would be in a scenario of very quickly needing to start to rely on general fund revenues in order to support that fund, because we're just not bringing in enough to support it anymore. So if you want to maintain the stormwater fund as an enterprise fund, it really wouldn't have impact on the ability to fund or not any of these projects, because they're going to be separate revenue sources.
It also gives us sort of an idea of how Fire Station 3 equipment will be managed. Is that in?
We do have, under public safety, which is, I think a couple of pages, and we do have the fire station equipment plugged in. Right now, we do anticipate that there's going to be some asks of the board within the next month or two, as far as whether or not we want to move forward on replacing 2 apparatus, but it's only because the lead times are 24 and 36 months. And so it would be making the decision now, but the payments wouldn't come due until, I believe, 26 and 27, if we're acting on that.
Thank you. And I want to thank you in public also, because I was on vacation last week and didn't have, decided not to check in on stuff, and asked at the very last minute to have some of these numbers put before us so we can understand what we're looking at long term. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
So we've had lots of discussions about the fire station, and of course, we're still considering some additional changes to it, but I think it was the general consensus of the board. Yes, we wanted to pay for as much of it as possible with cash and not take out additional debt, and that means eating up the rest of our unallocated ARPA funds. So a lot of people would love to have on it. Gina and Mark mentioned that specifically. They are shaking right now. So, it sounds like maybe a plan. Again, we are going to have some further discussion on the fire station, but this is the plan that we have right now. Boy, thank goodness for ARPA funds.
If I can make one ask of the board, if there is sufficient support to move forward with just the RFP for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, those proposals would still come back to the board along with costs, and then the final funding decision would be made at that time. That's at least a 30-day process just to advertise, let alone to review. So you're probably 60 to 90 days out from when that would even come back at the earliest. But if that is something that the board is supportive of moving forward with, I know Corey would very much like to get that ball rolling, to get that process started. And again, if the board ultimately decided that didn't like the cost or didn't want to move forward, you could just turn down and opt not to approve funding.
Seeing if you had some anybody against that idea, so come back.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Move on to new business, item 9A, receipt of monthly budget report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the board. At this time of year, the budget report is kind of a non-report, unfortunately. We don't have lockdown numbers for FY23. We are deep in the process of preparing for that audit, and making sure that everything is in order and ready for the auditors, who will begin their process beginning of September, which is scarily right here upon us in the next few days. And the month of July is a transition month, because the majority, as you can see from this report, of our revenues that we receive in July actually are put back into the prior fiscal year, because tax bills don't go out until August 1st. And sales tax has a 2-month lag, so the money received in July and in August go back into the prior fiscal year, because the money we received in August was actually for June sales tax. So we're just kind of moving along pretty much as normal for this time of year. There are no alarming amounts on here. And as we have moved on through the month of August, we have already started receiving, some property tax payments from people who like to go ahead and pay the bill as soon as they get it. However, you do, as you know, the majority of that money does not come until December because people wait until the very last minute, because interest is not applied until January the 6th. So property tax revenues come in rather slowly at this time of year. And expenditures sometimes are, they do seem high compared obviously to the revenues, but again, a lot of our contracts and service maintenance contracts and subscriptions all renew in July. They run the same fiscal year as the town does.
All right. Any questions for Teresa? Thank you.
Thank you.
On 9B, consider record services contract. Chief says.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. The current record contract is set to expire September. The current record contract's set to expire September 11th of this year. Since 2013, we've had a single vendor, Williams Record, as our tow service provider. July 24th, we put out RFP asking for bids on this contract. We received two, one coming from Williams, the other coming from Smith's Record Stylings. After reviewing those based on the current contract, the parameters of the current contract, the service that we've been receiving, we suggest that we stay with Williams for the next contract. Williams is able to provide an on-site dispatcher and driver 24 hours a day, 365 days a week. We're also there, have staff on site to release vehicles from 6 a.m. to midnight. That way anybody's vehicle that we tow, they're able to go pick it up between those hours. So I have staff on site for that. Smith's offered to have a 24-hour number during non-business hours that a customer could call, and they could have an employee on site within 20 minutes. The Williams also offers towing of our own police vehicles for breakdowns or crashes or whatever needs to have at a charge. Towing for other town vehicles such as public works or any other department at a discounted price, where that was not mentioned in the proposal that Smith's gives. Williams also provides a $5 per tow administrative fee to be paid back to the town of Matthews. That is paid monthly on those tows. The current service that they provide has been positive. Our interactions have been positive. Citizen complaints or customer complaints have been few, and we have had those. Management has resolved them quickly. It's simply a phone call from us, let them know what the issues are. Their ownership is receptive to reaching out to those customers and trying to correct whatever issues they did have. Then we did a review of the fee schedule. In this particular bid, we allowed the vendors to place their pricing. We haven't had a significant price increase or much of a price increase in the 10 years that we've been with Williams. And they still don't have a significant, it seems to be in line with what other area providers are. And in many of the categories, Williams is either the same or less than what Smith had offered us. So with the, it'd be our recommendation to stick with the current parameters and the current vendor that we have.
Approximately how many tows a month do?
For us, roughly 70. I would tell you average about 70.
Yes, just a Question, I don't quite understand this $5 per tow administration fee that's paid to the town. So in other words, they administer the tow, and then they pay us for their doing administration?
Yes, sir. So they do the towing, and then to maintenance, the paperwork that goes along with the towing and that sort of thing. That's what I believe it was when we brought it in 2013. I believe we do that, and they do it for CMPD as well.
Oh, you do that. That's why I was confused. I thought they did all the paperwork and administration and then paid you $5 so that to do it.
No. We don't administer a whole lot. Currently, we do verify ownership before we release.
I got it.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Whitley?
Major, how much difference was it between Smith and Williams?
On the pricing,
Yes.
yes. The tow is the same. The general tow is the same, $150.
So Williams, we have, and I know as long as I've been here, we've been with Williams. Is that a monopoly, or do we not give an opportunity for Smith to serve sometime?
Well, when we use the single vendor, it's just with Williams. But we did put out the request for them to put in their bid as far as what they can offer us.
Yeah, I just know that when I was on the highway patrol, we had a time with record services and bidding and trying to get who's gonna do this and come and pick up. And when I see one vendor for 10 years is the only one that the town gets, I know we just went with our sanitation when we switched over. It's good for business when we give another opportunity. I know there's a price at the end of that, but they came pretty much the same thing. Equal as well too. Can you hear me? Equal as well too. And for 10 years is a long time for one servant to have all control of the records in Matthews. Then you got another vendor that says. Right. Thank you. That's my only thing. I'm real advocate about one person dominating for 10 years and not giving another record service an opportunity to try competitive. Or you say, well, can you match it? Can you match what they do? That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Urban?
So I was just gonna say that I would be all for that. If you had 2 or 3 people you could call, that'd be fine by me. If it rotates, I have no problem with that. But in your proposals, though, Smith's was more expensive than 5 to 10. So I think that's, to your point, was you want to have some competition, but they're more expensive for 50% of all the line items.
But then, John, like we just negotiated with our trash company.
And maybe that's a conversation, just
I think we should say, can you match what they're doing? And if you can, I just have something in me that when you got one record service, I know we didn't do it in the highway patrol when I was in, and I had 10 record service for 10 different counties to deal with. And I knew how monopolized that comes to be sometimes. That's all.
I hear Reverend volunteering over the next cycle to negotiate contract for records.
Commissioner Gardner?
It's kind of a weird question, but Mayor, who was it that told you your truck number?
Need to repeat.
Oh, okay.
I would object vehemently. They'll remain nameless, but I got towed in more ways than one. All right, any further questions, comments, motions? Our short meeting is getting late.
Yeah, all right, well, I'll go ahead and make a motion then. Let's go down here. Let's see, make a motion to authorize the town manager to execute contract Williams Record Service for police towing and vehicle evidence storage. The terms of the contract being 3 consecutive years with the right to renew for 2 additional one-year terms. This is all outlined in the memo by Major Roy Sisk dated August 23rd, 2023.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Urban, second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Discuss pilot tax grant program for income eligible senior citizens. Town Manager Board.
So in addition to the memo, we have a short presentation regarding this program. So this presentation is in response to an inquiry from you all in regards to a pilot tax grant program. Mecklenburg County is currently offering a tax grant program that I'll talk about in detail. So the name of the program, the acronym is HOMES, and that stands for Helping Out Mecklenburg Homeowners with Economic Support. As I mentioned, it is a taxpayer assistance program qualifying low to moderate income residents within Mecklenburg County. Really, the purpose of that program is to help residents retain their home by reducing their real estate property taxes based on the increase of property tax values. The funds are called grant funds, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, so I want to emphasize that. But the way the program is set up, the funds are paid to the Mecklenburg County tax collector, who reduces the amount of taxes due for that recipient's primary residence. So as you see up here, I underlined it and put it in bold. Qualifying residents do not directly receive any funds as part of this program. So there's no money exchanged between the resident and for the funds that are appropriated to their tax bill. So this program has been around for the last 3 years. It's been in existence since FY22. They're in their 3rd year, Mecklenburg County. And as part of this last fiscal year, Mecklenburg established a joint partnership program with the city of Charlotte. That program is designed to where the city contributes funds to Mecklenburg County, and then the county administers the program. So that administration includes covering staffing to support that program. The funding is based on an ad valorem split of 70-30. And so the county pays 70%, the city pays 30% of the total program cost. And a portion of those funds, as I mentioned, supports program administration fees, so personnel and operating fees associated with running that program. At the end of each fiscal year, for any amount of funds that are not used, the city of Charlotte funds that were contributed, if those funds are not used, then they are returned to the city at the end of each fiscal year. So a little bit about eligibility. As I mentioned, this is for low to moderate income residents. So this program is income restricted only, and that household income must not exceed 80% of the area median income. You've heard us talk about AMI with affordable housing, and just to remind you that AMI is set by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So this is a federal income limit range. Specific to how much grant funds can be authorized for each primary residence, they can receive up to a total of $660. And the way that it's awarded is broken down as follows. So grant funds equal to 25% of the Mecklenburg County tax amount based on the last available tax bill. They can receive those grant funds not to exceed $426.
for the partnership with the city of Charlotte, this is the new component of the program. If that same resident lives within the Charlotte city limits, if they have a primary residence within the Charlotte city limits, additional funds may be granted up to 25% of the city of Charlotte tax amount on the last tax bill, and that is not to exceed $234. So that is where we get the $660. Of primary residents may be eligible to receive up to $660 as part of this program. And they can apply annually. So there is not a stipulation of you can only apply one time and you no longer are eligible. What I will say though to that is that applications are processed on a first come, first served basis until funds are exhausted. So for those that are interested, it would be wise to get their application in as soon as possible. And for this program year, the application periods started July 1st and it will run through November the 17th of this year. So board consideration for this pilot tax grant program. The thought is, or the recommendation or consideration for the board is to offer an additional amount of grant funds to qualifying residents within the Matthews town limit. So similar to the city of Charlotte, how they offer some additional funds for those living within the city of Charlotte limits, our recommendation or something for you to consider is these additional funds would be granted to qualifying residents who are age 65 and older. So the resident will already have to meet an income qualifier. This would add an age qualifier. The age limit that is recommended here coincides with the North Carolina Homestead Property Exclusion Exemption Program and has been vetted by our town attorney based on North Carolina statutes and constitutions for what is eligible for receiving some type of tax reduction. Outside of that, all other home program criteria and eligibility requirements would apply. So again, the person would have to meet the current program requirements. If they met those requirements, then the recommendation or for the board to consider is that we would add an age qualifier where they would then be eligible for an additional amount of grant funds from the last tax bill. The board has discretion of an allowable amount. However, if we use the same methodology as the county did with the city, that 70-30 split, the maximum Matthews grant amount may be up to $362. And that is based on the 26.65 cents per 100 tax rate and the median home price of $453,000. Because this program focuses on home retention, keeping people in their homes, it also focuses on assisting those with low to moderate income. A proposed funding source for you to consider is to allocate a portion of the $1.5 million that we have earmarked for affordable housing to support this program. It supports the purpose of the homes program because it helps the residents retain their home ownership. It also supports our town strategic plan, our beautiful strategic plan that we're working on moving through that 5-year plan, and specifically it supports Vision 9, which is diverse communities. And the two initiatives that it supports is the supporting the Mecklenburg County Age-Friendly Master Plan and also continuing our focus on affordable housing. If this is something that the board would like to consider, this pilot tax grant program, then the next steps would be for us to meet with Mecklenburg County or engage with Mecklenburg County to determine the feasibility, timing constraints, and administration requirements necessary to extend this to Matthews. As I mentioned, there are staff involved to administer the program. The application period does end
this year for, on November the 17th. So those would be the things that we would want to talk in detail with to see what the feasibility is of extending the program for the Matthews residents who are 65 or older. At this time, I'll ask if there are any questions that you might have.
We have any idea how much it would cost the town of Matthews to implement such a plan?
It just depends on utilization, and so, assuming that you service 80 individuals or primary residents, that could be approximately $23,000 if you're looking at the maximum amount of 362, and that is up to 362.
Mr. Devon?
Yes, a couple of numbers don't seem to jive to me, so let me ask you for clarification. You said the maximum amount allocated per residence was $660, I believe it was.
Correct, that is for the Mecklenburg County and City of Charlotte partnership. So the Mecklenburg County component, you can receive up to $426. If you're a City of Charlotte, if you have a primary residence within the City of Charlotte, then you can receive an additional amount up to 234. So the
Okay, so what I'm trying to do is to
426
calculate the total cost to Mayor Hickton's question is what would be the total amount maximum to be received by a Matthews resident?
So you would look at the Mecklenburg County component of up to $426. And then depending on what the board's decision is for allocation, it could be an additional amount up to the 362. And sorry, I could probably do a quick math. 788. Thank you. It's late. 788.
Okay, that's where I was going. All right, so 362, so that's going to determine what you said 80 perhaps was a round figure?
Well, I just,
Yeah,
I threw out a number.
You just pulled one. Okay,
Correct.
so, but that comes out to, yeah, you're right, 28,960. Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
And my only concern is that if we offer this, I have to, it would never happen, but you have to plan for every eligible person eligible. Because, we'd be on the hook for whatever, there's some maximum amount we would have to determine based on that gatekeeper.
And also with the aging population, and with, if the economic hardships continue with inflation and interest rates, this number could increase significantly.
So just remember, the first qualifier is income based. So these are the question that we would want to ask or want to know is of those that live in Mecklenburg County, how many folks are considered low to moderate income? And that's based on their family size. So once they meet that qualifier, then they would be possibly eligible for the age qualifier. The other thing that I didn't mention is if any of the recipients are part of current programs like the veterans program, or I mentioned the North Carolina Homestead Exclusion Program. So if the recipients are participating in any of those programs, then they are not eligible to participate in this program at all. So they're not able to get the North Carolina Homestead reduction and receive the reduction through the homes program administered by Mecklenburg County.
And I think you've got a built-in factor for mitigating possibility of increased cost is the fact that you have a fixed amount and it's first come, first served. But that expression kind of bothered me a little bit. So in other words, it's not based on need, it's based on timeliness of application. So is that the way the Charlotte system works, first come, first served?
That's the way the current program is set up, first come, first served.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I am aware that we have quite a few people within that need to move Social Security, certain that would fall below 80% AMI threshold. Commissioner Urban.
Charlie, would you raise your hand? I want to make sure you get it.
What I was going to say is first come, first served. The answer to that was, putting up the lump sum of money, if it's used fine. If it's not used, it's reimbursed for the time and we start it all over again. But you brought that up already at the end of the conversation, so I didn't say anything. Okay, so I guess, so is your proposal in looking at some ARPA funds? Is that step number one? Is looking at using some of the ARPA funds to get into this project?
Correct, the 1.5 that was earmarked for affordable
And
housing.
we've already earmarked 500 of that for Habitat for Humanity, correct? Check the box, okay? So, do you have a number in mind? And do you foresee like beta testing this for 1 year or 4 years or 8 years? What was your thinking from that standpoint?
Great question. So my recommendation would be first for us to to engage with Mecklenburg County. Depending on what they share, definitely we could beta test it for 1 year. It is a pilot. Just to see what the utilization is and then revisit it the following year. As I understand, the agreement with Mecklenburg County and the city is an annual agreement.
Okay, so I guess, because I mean, in some respects, I like this program better than the thing we're floating about home repair. Because you're talking about a lot more paperwork, administrative actions of monitoring that, and then maybe they put out the funds, and they send us a receipt, we figure it all out. It's probably objectively fair to say that those 62 and over probably have a harder time maintaining their home if they have income issues. So maybe that's still a program in the works, but I like this fact that it's already been thought out. I guess the question is, there's some issues with the ARP funds, what's remaining, but I wouldn't have a problem with, let's say you say $50,000 for 2 years, and 25 per year, you run out, call it quits from that standpoint. But I do tend to like this a little bit more than the construction facade grant type program we've been talking about from that perspective. Mr. Buckley.
I have not mentioned this to the manager before, but it is possible to use general funds for this also.
Well, I figured
Because
maybe if you got
use
enough
tax funds for this kind of thing.
I guess my thought process is I would rather use ARPA funds at this stage. That's what it's for, it's the COVID aspect of it. And then maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, you see that opportunity in there to make that a reoccurring situation. But right now, we're just dealing with the ARPA conversation.
Yes, yeah, so she brought up.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah, I would very much be in favor of doing this at least as a pilot or looking into it further. Matthews is a relatively affluent community, but we have people who have fixed incomes that are elderly and they, particularly in light of our latest budget and how we have to raise taxes, I think that we need to help some folks out that need that. It's a real shame when you see an elderly person have to leave their home because they can't afford to pay taxes on it. That's a reason to have to leave their home. Mayor Pro Tem Poole.
Yeah, I think this is a great program. I think it would be an excellent use of ARPA dollars, especially if it's $25,000 to $50,000 a year. I guess what I was looking for, are you looking for the motion that's in the packet? Or are you looking for a motion, or is this kind of a thumbs up type situation? Well, that being said, I would like to make a motion.
I like the program as well, but help me understand, I'm confused. When we had to do the 1 million match for the community, for
The community project funding grant.
Yeah,
Yes, so that is still pending. We don't know if we are a recipient yet, but that matches up to. So the ask was 1 million. If we decide we only want to accept 500,000, then our match would be whatever we decide to accept as part of that grant.
Good question, Commissioner Hoover.
I would like to make a motion that we pursue the pilot tax grant program and approval for staff to engage with Mecklenburg County to determine the feasibility, timing constraints, and program administration requirements to successfully implement this pilot program.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Poole, a second by Commissioner Urban, Commissioner Vaughn.
Could we amend that to state that the monies have to come from the ARPA funds for the pilot program?
friendly amendment.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was too early. Because we're too early in the stage of the game. So I'll refine it. I'll refine this line.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Last item under new business tonight is discuss CMS bond community meeting, and Commissioner Hoover came forward a couple of weeks ago requesting that we have a CMS bond presentation here in this room on September 21st. And after talking with Charlie, it does require a vote of the board. So I am aware that similar presentations are being given in Davidson and Huntersville. Huntersville is having CMS come to a board meeting like this one to give a presentation. Davidson is doing a town hall type thing, which I think is what Commissioner Hoover had in mind. But Commissioner Hoover, if you want to discuss what your idea was.
Well, this wasn't my idea. I was contacted by CMS representatives, and they just wanted to hold a community meeting here in the town hall. So this would not be sponsored by the town. This is the CMS actually doing everything, not town. We have no involvement. They just wanted to use the room. That's all. I mean, when you sit there and say, if you want to say sponsored by the town and voting on it, well then, during the bond, there was vote for the meeting that was held here to discuss the bond. I mean, there's a difference between public meetings and public hearings. And according to General Statute 16881, conduct of public hearings, no vote from the board is required. So, I mean, the thing is, you don't have to have it here. I've already spoken to them. We can move it if you don't want to have it here. I mean, I made it clear if anyone wanted to attend it, to listen to what CMS had to say, you're welcome to attend. But if there was a quorum, Lori would have to make that known to the public. It's just, I don't know, I'm amazed here again that we're even in this discussion.
Well, it was my understanding that CMS did not believe that they were.
Sure, I chatted with some CMS staff, and their request was that they're happy to come to Matthews, that they have received requests, like the mayor said, from Huntersville and Davidson, but they haven't made plans to visit every community. And so their preference was that if Matthews desired to have them come speak, that the request come from Matthews to them, and then they would be happy to come. So that was really the purpose of it, was does the town board desire to have CMS staff come and speak either directly to the board or to the community about the bonds?
No, they're not interested in speaking to us. They want to educate the community, is what it's about. But here again, I spoke with them. If this is an issue, just cancel it and we will schedule it at a CMS school. I've already talked to them about that.
I don't think it's an issue at all to have it here. I think we just need to request, and this came from CMS staff, not elected officials.
Correct.
It's just that we would like them to come here. I think it's a great idea. I think that you suggested it originally. I think it's great to have the public here to be able to ask questions. So I don't have any problem with being here. I just think we need. Garner, do you have a comment?
I just had a question about what this meeting was about, but I think listening to the context, I sort of understand it. Maybe it makes sense to summarize it more succinctly for the public or anybody watching, and maybe to my benefit as well.
So the conversation that I had with CMS staff was that they would be happy to come give an informative presentation about the bonds. They're trying to get out in a variety of ways throughout the community. And so if the town of Matthews as an entity desired to host them within town hall, they would be happy to come here and hold an open meeting for the community. They do anticipate having some other community meetings at schools, but they haven't yet determined which schools and when. And so they're not sure exactly how close or into the town of Matthews they might get. As an example, they said, we could end up at East Mac, or we could end up at Matthews Elementary. We're just not sure yet, but if the town desires to have them schedule one here to make sure that they're within, the town of Matthews proper, and we're helping facilitate that information out into the community, they would be happy to provide that information.
And if the meeting were noticed, all of us could attend, correct? And there will also be an opportunity for our residents to ask questions, correct?
Well, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner Fallon, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just need clarification why it's necessary to get board approval for the citizens of this town to use their own town hall for a meeting.
Because we are officially asking CMS to come here and do we're elected boards. So that's why it's-
Why can't a citizen ask CMS to come and give a presentation for a community meeting? I mean, seriously,
This
why?
is what Davidson did. This is what Huntersville did. It's not unreasonable. It's checking the box. I don't think it's a big deal.
No, I'm just asking the question, why are we going through this when is it because it's a commissioner that asked, or what if it was one of our regular citizens?
I think we would still require a vote of this board. The citizens that I want this would still vote on it. We would say you can't have any meeting you want in this room.
Well, then we,
Come here and have a concert or something. They can't just.
so they take the meeting elsewhere.
Okay, that's fine. I think it's appropriate to be here. This is the people's hall right here. This is where it should be, in my opinion. I think we need to vote on it. What if the KKK wanted to come in and give us talk? Would we say, sure, a citizen requested it, we're still out with it without voting on it? I mean, I think it's appropriate to have this board vote on it. We're gonna be here. And I think
If it's going to be here,
I think it's appropriate to be here.
okay,
That's what
thank you.
I think.
Okay, so what I'm understanding, we're here because you want the board, everyone here to be at the meeting, which is why we're at this point.
No, I'm doing.
I have a problem with that, but that,
Mr. Buckley, I mean, why do we have to vote on it?
This is a facility of the town of Matthews. Yes, it's a public hall, it's a public forum when it's open, but the citizens don't have the right to come and invite people to come to their meeting at this town hall. Only the board can invite people to come to me. Now, the board doesn't have to show up, but the board needs to take official action to then give the authority for somebody to come in and hold their meeting.
And I only made that comment, Gina, because I think I would like anybody that wants to come to come. I mean, I would hate to have it
exactly.
restricted and
I'm
only
just
three
trying
of
to
us
make
can
sense
come.
of this, it's just to me, I made it clear, anyone, you want to come, come.
It's a formality.
Yeah, I mean,
That's all.
I have no problem with that, but you just have to make sure that it's made public, made known to the public that we will be here. But as a public building, I know, years ago, a citizen group called Citizens for Effective Government used to meet here all the time. So they can meet here, I mean, groups can meet.
But that's it, it can't be here, just need the board approval for them to be here.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I have no problem, I just kind of like,
I have no problem with it. I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah,
I'm happy that we can have, I would hope that we would have a town hall meeting in this room.
well, I'm just amazed that so much fuss has come out because I was contacted, asked, hey, can we hold a community meeting in your town hall? I don't know, I'll ask. So that's what I did. And then from there, it just kind of snowballs. And that's just like, wow, okay. But yeah, everybody can come. One America.
All right. Any further discussion? Motion?
I'll make a motion that we invite CMS to have a bond communication meeting here at Town Hall. I think they were looking at September 21st.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Garner, second by Member Chairman Cool. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Any opposed? No, okay, thank you. Again, I just think that was a formality, it's no big deal. Let's move on to the mayor's report. I will be really short and sweet. Of course, we have Matthews Alive coming up September 1st through 4th. There are concerts Friday, Saturday, Sunday evenings about 8 o'clock. I've been addressing whoever's there Friday and Saturday, but if any elected officials want to come and come up on stage and be recognized during this time, you're certainly welcome. I'll find out the exact time, but I think it's around 8 p.m. There's also the Matthews Alive Parade at 10 p.m. on Saturday morning.
9:30.
Yeah,
That's a
10
late night
10
parade.
a.m.
Party.
9:30.
At 10 a.m. I think everybody here is going to participate, I believe. You need to, what's this, if you're going to participate in the parade, you need to be there by 8 a.m.
Say what?
That was the request from Ms. Whitley. So that's all I have. We're really looking forward to it. We're expecting a lot of people here. Let's hope the weather cooperates. There's a hurricane barreling down. Let's hope it either passes through or misses us or something like that. That's all I have. Town attorney report. No report, Mayor. Town manager report.
Just to follow up on the CMS meeting, staff will be happy to coordinate with CMS staff on their presentation. We'll get the room set up. We'll have staff here to enclose the building, so we're happy to handle that.
Thank you. And again, they're certainly welcome to have meetings at schools as well if they wish. I mean, I think the more meetings, the better, really, to get everybody informed. All right, we need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 311A6 to consider personnel matters to include the mayor, board of commissioners, town manager, town clerk, and town attorney.
I'm going to amend that to also pending litigation and so moved. Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Poole, second by Commissioner Urban. All in favor? Any opposed? Malia,